Are you tired of spending too much of your hard-earned money at the supermarket? Are you dreaming of farm-fresh eggs, homegrown veggies, and homemade everything? Well, welcome to Ditch the Store, where we break free from supermarket dependence and take back control of our food and household essentials. I'm CJ, and I'm here to show you that life is too short for store-bought eggs. So let's get started. G'day everyone, and welcome to another episode of Ditch the Store, episode 177, and I can barely contain my excitement. Episode 177 is all about my new book, which is going to go live on KDP, so on Amazon Bookstore. It's self-published. It's going to go live this Friday. You can pre-order the Kindle version, the electronic version, instead of the printed version. And, you know, I'm just happy if anybody gets anything out of it. So I don't mind which one you prefer. I have a Kindle and read Kindle books, and sometimes some books it's just not the same as having a physical book in your hand. But super, super excited that it finally got finished, and I'm going to talk a little bit about it today. So it's only going to be a short episode. This week is absolutely hell week for me. I am smack in the middle of 3 weeks of 50-hour shifts. So 5 10-hour shifts last week, this week and next week, varying between day shift, which is 7 to 5 during the day, and 1 to 11 of an afternoon. So I start afternoon shift today, and I'm on afternoon shifts now for the next 8 days with just Saturday and Sunday off in between. So the fact that I was able to get it published, get it onto Amazon, surprises me no end, and I can't wait to get my copy, which is on its way. It's being printed as we speak, the author copy, so I'll get that, and then I'll be able to show you, so keep an eye on the social medias. Now, to say I'm a little bit excited about it, and I hope you all noticed that little, excited. So for those that don't know, I do have a first book, which for those watching on YouTube, From Brooder to Plate, which is, and I just realised, you can't even see it because it's an author copy. Author copies from Amazon have a line across the middle of them that says not for resale, and it actually goes across the title, so you can't read the whole title. But it says From Brooder to Plate, the step-by-step guide to raising chickens for meat. And that was my first book. And the second book is Eggs Without Cartons, because if you're growing them at home yourself, you don't need to buy cartons. Eggs Without Cartons, the step-by-step guide to raising chickens for eggs. Now, before I get into that, I just want to give you an update. The farm is tracking really well at the moment. We are heading into spring. The days are starting to get a little bit longer. Young Lockie is growing up a storm. We've just started cutting his milk back, so he's starting to wean now. We're starting to get him off the bottle. But him and Dukes are best of buds, and he has started to acclimatise a little bit to our lovely cold temperatures here in the southern tablelands after coming from his birth town of Rockhampton, where it would have been lovely and warm all year round. And he is growing beautifully, so we're very happy with young Lockie and how he's tracking. We are in the process of trying to get rid of some of our meat goats so that we can condense our herd down and make it a bit smaller, but also smaller so that when we start the breeding program in March-ish next year, I haven't actually sat down and worked out the dates yet, but April, March will probably be when we start our breeding program. When we start that, I want to make sure that we're only feeding the ones that we're keeping, not the ones that are going for meat, and only looking after the ones that are going for breeding. The handy helper is outside at the moment putting fences up for young Lokie's yards, because he has to have a couple of different yards because we need to do a lot of paddock rotation to avoid things like Barber's poleworm, which I've spoken about in previous episodes, but I'm probably going to touch on goats again in the next couple of months. So we're going crazy like that. But like I just said, because I work day shift, like I have a normal job off of the farm, and I think most farmers do. I think you'd be struggling to find a farmer who 100% only works on their farm and doesn't have any other activities that they do off their farm. For me, I'm a shift worker. I work law enforcement. I have always worked law enforcement for the last 26 years, just clocked over 26 years the other day. probably would have got less for murder. And I'd have all my teeth fixed and probably be fit and educated and all the rest of it without having to have paid for anything. But that aside, I 26 years in, and I now work behind a desk instead of out, front facing towards the public because of my knee injury, my leg injury. So I work shift work still, which I love working shift work. I've always loved working shift work because it means I get days off when other people are at work. And so I work 10-hour shifts, and they're either 7 to 5 or 1 till 11, and it varies. But this block that we're in at the middle of right now is a 3-week block of 50-hour weeks each week of those 3 weeks. And it kills. It really hurts. We get a 5-day block off at the end of that period, which is lovely, and then only go back to work for like 2 or 3 days. But it's just the hardest period to get through. And of course, that was the period that I decided I had to get my book published. I had to get it out into the world. I'd been sitting on it for so long. I'd written most of it, and it was just a matter of finalising the details, and I'd sat on it for so long. So the fact that I was able to do it, and I think I saw something on my feed come up the other day, yesterday. We're going into an eclipse period, and evidently Scorpios, which is what I am, are supposed to be coming into their own during this eclipse period. So I'm going to take that and run with it if somebody says I'm coming into my own, because I might be a little bit ADHD, and as a result of that, I may be a little bit unable to judge how long something is going to take me to complete when I set my mind to doing it. So sometimes I will say, I'll get that done in an hour, and 3 hours later I am still sitting there doing it. And because I also am a little bit of a tight-ass, and I don't like paying somebody to do something that I think I can learn to do myself and do it myself. But as my books progress, I may get myself a proper editor and a proper person to format my books for me and things like that. But at the moment, the book, like this one, is a work of love from me that I did from word to go myself. I wrote the whole lot myself. I found all the photos myself. I formatted it. I edited it. I may have used Claude a little bit, AI, to go through the book and tell me where I'd done grammatical errors and spelling errors, because I'm not the best speller in the world. I tend to type quick and not think about what I'm spelling. But it's done. I have 2 books under my belt. I also have some what they call low content books. I've got some journals that I sell on Amazon as well. But my real passion is getting these books out there. I really think it's important. And I want to talk a little bit about that today, because I could have just written one big book on just chickens. It would have probably taken me longer than the 2 books have taken me, because I am a little bit of a perfectionist, and I really struggle with that concept of done is better than none. But there's so many people out there that say it, you're better off just getting the item out there rather than, sitting on it and going, it's not perfect, so I can't release it. I have no doubt there are typos still in these books. I have no doubt that I could have done things better. I have no doubt that further additions down the track, because I will revise them when I have time, if that ever happens. Further additions down the track will probably have changes made and have things put in that I left out that I didn't think about. But for now, the books are out there. And I think the main reason why I ended up doing 2 books instead of 1 was because when I would speak to people about raising chickens for eggs versus raising chickens for meat, there was a definite line between the 2 where people would say to me, I don't think I could ever raise chickens for meat. And it became a real passion of mine to kind of get it out there to people that, as far as raising your own meat on your own farm or your own homestead, chickens are the simplest one to start with. Raising a whole cow and having to butcher it, keep it in a cold room, space for it in the freezer, dealing with the skin, the bones, all the other stuff is hard work. I've done it with my parents, and it is hard work. Butchering a goat or a deer and putting that in the freezer is a much simpler place to start than a whole cow. Most of us in Australia have a fairly high beef diet. Like, beef tends to be probably the meat that we eat the most, but lamb, goats, deer, pigs are all animals that can be homestead raised and butchered and put in the freezer for yourself. And I would encourage you to consider doing that if you have enough space to raise those animals. Chickens, the thing with chickens is you don't need a huge amount of space. In fact, people raise meat birds in their backyards. Now, I never did it in my backyard, but I did it on 2.5 acres, and I've now done it on 120 acres. And we've done it for a couple of years. We haven't done it the last 2 years because of my leg issues, but we will be going back to it. We will absolutely be going back to it. We're in the process of looking for a new freezer at the moment. Once we have a chest freezer that's operational again, and I do want to build a cool room. Having a cool room would be helpful, but there are alternatives, and I go through the alternatives in my book, Brooder to Plate. But I didn't want to make it so that people would be put off buying a book about raising chickens for eggs purely because they'd never considered raising chickens for meat. So the easiest way for me to do it was to separate it into 2 books. So for those people who really can't get their head around raising a chicken for meat, don't buy this book and buy the Raising Chickens for Eggs. Because I know that there's a huger, I was just about to say huger, there's a much bigger market for people who want to raise chickens for eggs because that is absolutely the gateway to homesteading. Similar to, I speak to a woman over in the States who raises rabbits for meat. In Australia, rabbits don't get raised for meat in that way. We have so many wild rabbits. Most people hunt rabbits and use the hunted rabbits for meat, as long as they're not, got myxomatosis or too wormy. But most people will hunt rabbits for meat. Whereas in the States, they grow rabbits for meat. They literally farm rabbits. There's no rabbit farms that I'm aware of in our area. I actually think there might be some legislation around keeping rabbits in farm areas because of the issue with wild rabbits and being a pest in Australia. But chickens for meat are the next best option in that regard. They take a very little space and they're very easy to do. But the stepping stone before that, before you go to raising chickens for meat, is raising chickens for eggs. I think once you get past a point, I've got to let you know, sorry. I think once you get past a point of raising chickens for eggs, then raising chickens for meat is kind of like a natural progression after the eggs. And I think once you've been able to manage and contain and look after chickens for eggs, raising chickens for meat is actually, it's much quicker. It's only 8 weeks, usually from day old to butcher day. And so it is a natural progression to me. That would be an easy progression. And I joke all the time and say chickens are the gateway drug to homesteading because I think once you start with chickens, then it seems like a natural progression to move on to the other things. So I think everybody should have chickens because then you'll know whether you really want a homestead or not. Honestly, if you've got chickens for eggs and you start raising them for meat, you're a homesteader. You can call yourself that and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. But I have been being asked for a long time, when is the second book coming? And I apologise to anybody who might have been waiting for it because it did take me a lot longer than expected. My little ADH brain kicking in again. But I had a lot on my plate, to be fair. Even when I was off injured, there were days where I wasn't able to, after my accident, where I wasn't able to actually do anything. My brain just wouldn't function enough. But we are there now. So the idea of the 2 books, having the 2 books separate, was that you could buy one and then buy the other, or buy them as a whole, both together. And I will work out something with Amazon where I can do it where both of them are able to be purchased with a bit of a discount if you purchase both at the same time. So I will work something out with that. So if you're waiting for that, go ahead and wait. It is being put on a special price on Kindle because I put it on KDP Direct. So that means you can read it on Kindle at a very discounted rate at the moment. I think it's either $1.99 Australian or $2.99 Australian, but it's the cheapest one that I could pick for Australian books that I put it on because I'd rather get it out there and I'd really like people to review it. So for those of you that listen to me regularly, if you are so inclined to read it, jump on, read it. I'm so open to any kind of constructive criticism. If there's something I've missed out, let me know. If there's something you think I should have added that I didn't, or something in there that you think, that doesn't sound right, query me on it. I would love to be queried on it. But I would also, if you enjoy it and you get something out of it, I would absolutely be forever indebted if you left a review. Amazon books are one of those things where the reviews pump it up to the top of the queue. And the more reviews you get, the closer your book is to the first screen that people open up on when they're searching for particular search titles. So if you've got an opportunity to read it and review it, I would very much appreciate that. And I may be, once I get a hard copy of the book, I may do a bit of a giveaway where we maybe give out some books for freebies. So if you're interested in that, hit me up and let me know. In which case, if you're interested in the freebie, it may come with the, qualifier that you have to review it. So that we do get a review. And it's not just because I need reviews to sell it. I want reviews so that I know that I've hit the mark, that what I've put out there in that book is something that you are actually getting value out of. If you're not getting value out of it, then there's really no point in it being out there. So I need to change it. So what else have I got here? There's a couple of things that I wanted to put out there that came out when I was, doing this. And like I said, this episode will be a really quick one. I've actually got to duck away from a meeting at the kids' school and then go to work at 1 o'clock, and it's like 10 o'clock in the morning, and I'm trying to madly record this because I was up most of the night finishing the book when I'd been at work all day yesterday. So a couple of common egg layer mistakes that beginners make. And some of you that already have chooks would chuckle at these. But the ones that, and there's kind of like three free nuggets. Get it? Chickens, nuggets. Yeah. Anyway, a couple of things that came out when I was talking to people about the fact that I was writing a book. A lot of people don't understand the concept of fertile eggs. And they don't understand that eggs that don't have a rooster living with the hen, when the hen lays the egg, they are not fertilized if there's no rooster in the hen house. I've had people at work say to me, "Oh yeah, but I don't like eating eggs because they're baby chickens." And it's like, "Oh, do you get eggs from somebody who's a rooster?" And they're like, "No." And I'm like, "Do you understand that without a rooster, the eggs aren't fertile? Like, even if any," and I actually had a guy say to me the other day, "No, but their hen went broody. She sat on the eggs." I said, they can go broody without fertilizing the eggs. They don't know. All they know is their body clock is telling them it's time to go broody and sit on some eggs. He thought that all eggs were fertile, regardless of the status of the rooster being in the yard. And it does my head in a little bit that we're so far removed from our food cycle that people actually don't realize there has to be a boy and there has to be a girl of the same species who are engaging in intercourse in order for an egg to be fertilized to make a baby of that species. It does my head in a little bit. Nature, darlings, nature. It doesn't make mistakes. It knows what it's doing. If there's no rooster in the yard, the hen's eggs are not fertile. The number of people that ask me about it is insane. The fact that she's sitting on eggs because she's gone broody does not make the eggs suddenly fertile. It just makes them rotten eggs. After 3 weeks of her sitting on them, determined to hatch out her babies, you will just have 3-week-old rotten eggs. The second myth is about supermarket eggs versus backyard eggs. And this was something I have to admit I did not know until probably about 10 years ago. I didn't know that you could pasteurize eggs. Evidently, eggs can be pasteurized. They can be quickly superheated to kill bacteria on the outside of them. I had no idea. I'm still in shock over this. We eat our eggs raw. We don't pasteurize our milk. We are raw milk drinkers here in this house. We have our own goats that we milk, and I'm not spending time pasteurizing milk that doesn't need to be pasteurized. There's nothing wrong with our milk. It's clean. The girls are disease-free. We're drinking the milk. But people didn't know that. And like I say, 10 years ago, I had no idea either. It was somebody mentioned to me and said, "Oh, but your eggs aren't pasteurized, so that's why I'm not buying them." And I was like, eggs in the shop pasteurized? I went and had a look, and lo and behold, they are. Anyway, no, we don't pasteurize our eggs. And I actually think that our eggs are healthier for not being pasteurized. I know that when we're feeding the masses, I know the whole raw milk debate as well. When we're feeding the masses, sometimes it's better to pasteurize things in order to prevent disease going through to the masses. But when you're raising your own food, you're only feeding your own family. You're not feeding the masses. And it's your choice whether or not you do it. And what was the other thing? There was something else that there was lists of animals. So I went through and did lists of animals that are predators in the book. And because I live in Australia and I've never farmed in the UK or the US, I've been to both countries. I've been to the US and I've been to the UK. But I was trying to aim it predominantly at that market because that's where most of my listeners are. And there were so many predators that I didn't realize in the UK. You guys have some badass animals. The US I kind of half expected. You guys have foxes, you have badgers, you have bears, you have mountain lions, like cats, bigger cats than our domestic cats. In your country, that I knew America had quite a few predators. You're probably pretty close to Australia. I mean, I know everybody says every animal in Australia is trying to kill you. Well, they're not all trying to kill you. I mean, foxes are very timid and they will run away when a human approaches. When Luna, our Maribor, approaches, they will run away as well. But they'll kill a chook. They're quite happy to kill a chook. A chook is low on the scale of things that will have a go at them. But they're timid around humans. You guys have some animals in the US that I wouldn't probably take on without a gun. And in the UK, I was surprised that there were so many animals that will attack chickens when I did the research. So that was something that came out of my book research that I really just didn't expect, I guess. But it just goes to show that we all have the same issues as far as making predator-proof runs for our chickens and ensuring that our girls aren't attacked. I mean, I do say, and I went through and looked at the stats, and I have to be honest, in all of those countries, in Australia, America and the UK, and I would imagine in most westernised kind of countries as well, the biggest threat to chickens in your backyard, in a backyard environment, are domestic dogs. And that might make you feel bad about little Fido and how you love your dog, but dogs that are not brought up around chickens, and Roxy, our Kelpie, is a chook killer. We can't have her near the chickens. If they're not brought up around chickens and they see chickens as a animal that they can kill, then they will kill it. So it's really important to keep that in mind. Now, why did I write the hard way? That was another question I got when I was talking to somebody about how long it was taking me to write the book. Look, I know AI is out there, and don't get me wrong, I use AI. I use it a lot. I will ask it questions. I will ask it to drag up research documents for me. I will ask it to alter pictures slightly where I can't find a picture showing exactly what I want, and I will say, hey, here's a picture of one of my chickens, but I want to show this. Can you make that look more like this? I have no problem doing that because sometimes I just can't get an image, because we are a working farm. I can't always get an image of something happening to a chicken at the exact moment that it's happening, because I'm not walking around with my phone on me every second of the day to take images of these things. So there are times that I rely on AI, but writing the book, it was really, really important to me to only rely on AI for the purposes of fixing grammatical errors, because I am not perfect when it comes to that shit, and spelling mistakes, because I type at the speed that my brain thinks, which is far quicker than I can type at. So I make spelling mistakes, but also to make things read better. Because sometimes in my head, I'm spitting shit out at a really quick rate of knots, and it comes out a bit like blah on the page. So I will use AI to say, can you put this more succinctly without changing the words that I'm using, without changing the references that I'm making? And so I will use AI in that respect. But I think it's really important for books, especially these kind of books, these kind of, I'm imparting knowledge that I've obtained over the last 20, 30, 40 years, if you include it all, about raising chickens and about how we manage our chickens. I'm imparting that information to people who maybe don't have as much information as me or don't have as much experience as me. And I think it would be fairly inauthentic of me to allow AI to take over that process. So I did write this book, and I didn't write it by typing because I am shithouse at typing that quick. So what I did was I used my lovely little microphone that I have here, and I voice recorded chunks of it. And then I would go back and I would edit those chunks that I voice recorded. And that was the only way that I could do it in the end to get all the pages out. I think in total it's 170 odd pages. And, that's a lot of words. So I had to go through and do it that way because I'm working a full-time job. I'm a full-time mum. For those that may not know, or maybe I have never explained it clearly, we're a blended family. My kid's father lives 40 minutes away and he does help me. He takes the kids every second weekend. But, for anybody who's a mum, especially if you've been a single mum at any point, you are responsible for the majority of the kid maintenance in things. So I look after their school notes coming home, their banking, their work schedules, their sports schedules, what team they're playing with, clothes they may need, dental appointments, medical appointments. I look after all that. So I have a full-time job looking after 2 teenage kids who are very active. And while they help me as much as they can, obviously there's some things they can't do. I have a full-time job outside of the farm that's an hour commute to get to and an hour commute to get back from. I have the handy helper, who is my partner in crime, who I love to bits, but he has a full-time job and he is a part-time dad. He has his son every second weekend. He's also got 2 older daughters that he has to manage, and he's got a granddaughter as well. So between us, we're trying to run a farm, work, look after kids that are the relevant children in our lives, and trying to have a life as well together. And that's what made it drag out for so long. Now, it's definitely not an apology for why it took so long for the book to get written. The book got written when the book was due to be written. I like to look at it that way. But for those people who are out there thinking, God, how am I going to do it all? You know what? You can. You absolutely can. Just put your head down, keep going forward. What is it? Just keep swimming? Dory says, just keep swimming. Or Nemo, Finding Nemo. You sometimes just have to do that, and don't try and put unrealistic timeframes on yourself like I do. Publishing a book when I'm smack in the middle of 3 weeks of 50-hour shifts. That was probably not the smartest move on my point, but we got there in the end. Now, that is literally it for this week. I know it's a short episode and I haven't kind of gone on as much as what I normally do. I just want to say, if you haven't already had a look at it, go and have a look at From Brooder to Plate on Amazon. Which is the first book, and by the weekend, and if you're not following me on social media, jump on and follow me at Mojo Homestead, which is soon to change. I am changing my Facebook and Instagram handles to Ditch the Store because it's more relevant to what I'm doing now. So don't be surprised if that changes if you are already on those social media pages. But jump on, have a look. If you are so inclined to get a copy or have a Kindle version even, and I'm such a tight ass, buy the Kindle version. You don't have to buy the printout. The reason the printout is so expensive, I think it's $21 or $22.99. The reason that it is so expensive to buy it is because Amazon, to print the colour pictures that are in it, Amazon have to do it in Australia on white pages with premium printing to get the colour images. And the colour images are really important to this book. So that's why it's a little bit more expensive. So buy the Kindle version. I have no problem with that. Anyway, that is it for me this week. I have to duck out to go and get ready for work and head into the school for a visit before I go to work. And love yous all. Thank you for bearing with me and being so patient for the book to come out. It's going to be live by the weekend. Until then, see you all next week. Bye for now. Well, that's it for today's episode of Ditch the Store. If you're loving the journey to self-sufficiency, be sure to subscribe. You can also leave a review for us or share this episode with a friend who's ready to break up with their supermarket. If you've got questions or success stories, we'd love to hear about them on the socials. You can also find me at www.mojohomestead.net. Until next time, keep raising, growing and making. And remember, life's too short for store-bought eggs.